Hello. It says I'm live, but I think there's a different camera on me to what I expected there to be. Hello to anybody that finds me later. Hi. I'm not very good at hanging around. When I first start a live, I know some people sort of wait for people to clock on, but I'm like, no, I'm ready to talk. Like, is that picking me up okay? I haven't done a live for a little while. So this is good practice and good for me. There was a few different subjects. I wanted to be open for Q&A, but there's a couple of different subjects. One, I'm doing a challenge, 30 days of showing off, which is improvisation and having a character. So I wanted to mention that. Number two, about the Alchemist book, because it keeps coming up in my notes and ideas that I want to talk about that. And three, the Q&A, which is people like us do things like this. People like us can turn the camera on. People like us can figure this stuff out. So if anybody finds me, sometimes I find that there's somebody completely random that finds the channel and they're just wanting to hang out with somebody on a live and ask questions, and that's all cool and groovy too. But in the meantime, one of the things relating to that, people like us do things like this. If you're a YouTuber or if you're considering going live, it's possible you will have nobody show up for the live. It's okay. It's okay. I must admit, I find it kind of funny. For me, the goal is I'm trying to get better at this. I'm trying to get better at being on camera. I'm trying to get more comfortable thinking on my feet and speaking. So it's all good practice. And you don't have to stay on long, and you don't have to leave the video up forever. You can just leave it up for a short period, but you'll be, if you've got an inkling to turn the camera on and you'd like to be doing a live, it can be a bit of a buzz. So I encourage you to have a practice, or ask me questions and I will give you a little bit of a gentle push to hit record. Right, what can I start with? I'm doing this 30 days challenge at the moment. 30 days of showing off. We're linking it to Leo season, not saying that Leos are show-offs or anything like that. That the idea was the vibe and the energy of take center stage and be proud and share with people what you know, and you know, that kind of feeling, because we were as a small group of YouTubers feeling that we were playing a bit small. We'd done some experiments, we'd been hitting record, we'd been creating, but you know, we were all more comfortable saying, I'm still figuring this out. And some people have particularly pointed that out in my daily videos, that once you've been recording every day for a year, you can't say I'm still figuring it out. And I knew that there was a disconnect between how I felt inside and how other people were seeing me. And obviously for me, I still feel and definitely felt at that time that I was still figuring stuff out. So this was a chance to break out of that. And Anya Kirsten has got a lot of history with the drama and improvisation. And she suggested, why don't we make up a character that is confident in that situation, and we'll play that character just for short videos each day and see what happens, see how that impacts and affects us in everyday videos doing other things. And I thought that sounds like a cool idea. I thought it sounded like a cool idea. I could see the theory in it, that it could possibly work out and be helpful. I also knew that I would have to be brave and that I would have to put content up there which was me being silly and a character, and be completely, it's not so much about not having many views, because in a way that's okay. If people don't watch, that's fine. The bigger problem was people watching and being confused by it and then leaving me and saying, no, not interested in her now at all. And I had to make peace with that. It was something that I thought, okay, I'll lose subscribers. People will think I'm doing something weird and they won't want to hang around for it. And as I say, I had to find a way to make peace with that. I have lost some subscribers from doing it. I do feel though that I'm only halfway through this and it's already impacting how I show up on camera. It's already impacting some of the ideas and videos that I want to be making, and how much braver I feel about, oh, I want to talk about what I want to talk about. And I want to share some of the connections and ideas that I have, rather than doing things the right way that they always been done. So it's kind of, it's only halfway through, although I started about a week earlier in terms of trying to figure out what the character was. I was so self-conscious. As soon as I turned the camera on and I was pretending to be someone else, I would say a few words and then I'd sort of drop out of character. And, you know, as I say, all these nervous habits that would come out, and then I'd try again and then drop out. But fortunately, I had a few tips from Anya. That's in another video, so I'll link to that at the end later. So I'm halfway through. It's been very interesting. I've learned different ways to batch record some of the videos, which is a new thing because previously I'd been struggling to keep up on workloads and finding that some days were a washout, when now I've got a little batch of recordings and all I need to do is edit and upload and get the description done on each day. And that's transformed the sort of work process. So I will be keeping that for other things. I haven't done too many of the longer form videos, but I am working on, I recorded one long form video. I recorded a reaction video, and it was the first time where I thought, no, I want to re-record that. I want to have a tighter structure and I want to work on my own clarity. And I think prior to that, I pushed back on that. I'd felt that that was a bit too slick and a bit too polished. And I thought, I'm going to lose all of my personality if I make it better in those aspects, in terms of having that structure. I'm going to lose all the energy and my personality. But this time I was like, no, I think I can do this. I think I can make it sharper and still be me as I'm speaking. And that was quite a new thought. And there was, you know me, I have these two different voices going on in my head. There was definitely a voice that said, no, don't do that. You're losing the energy, and just stick with the original and don't bother wasting your time. But there's another part of me who was saying, no, this is your instinct. This is your gut speaking, saying, give it another go. When you watch the two next to each other, you can determine which one you think is the better one in terms of the qualities that I want to communicate, and which one I'll share. But so I've recorded two now, but I haven't re-watched the second one. So I need to put them back to back and see how it goes. So there you go. Anyway, moving on to the next subject, because there's no questions yet. If you've got questions, please put them up. If you're interested in doing videos, or if you're just curious who I am, please feel free to put the questions up. The Alchemist. This kind of ties into the project that I'm doing. If you don't know, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, that's the book that I'm talking about. And in this, the boy has a dream, and he dreams of treasure by the pyramids. And he says, okay, I'm going to go off to the pyramids. And along the way from Spain, he goes into Morocco, and then he ends up staying there longer. And then he goes across the desert and he ends up staying there longer. You know, all these trials and tribulations. And then he gets to Egypt, and there's a big challenge. And then he's told there that somebody else has had a dream that there was treasure in Spain. And he realizes that the treasure was where he was at the start all along. And one of the things that's been making me think about that is that I have a habit of thinking life will begin at that future stage. Life will begin once I finish this degree. Life will begin when I move to Spain. Life will begin. And all that stuff beforehand was not really relevant. And I know everybody says, oh, it's the journey that matters, but it sounds kind of trite, doesn't it? I don't know. I understand that it's the journey that matters, and that could be years that you're in that journey working towards your goal. But I still feel like I fall into that trap of, oh, when I've achieved this thing. So how that relates to the challenge is, oh, when I've learned the lessons of this challenge, then life begins and I move forward in terms of what I want to create. Or when I know what I want to do with YouTube channel, or when I've got this thing, particularly about knowing my goals. It's like when I'm clear on that, then I start and move on. And what I've realized really particularly with this challenge is that this is fun each day. And it might be because it's improvisation and I don't know. It isn't so much working for a plan. The plan is do the 30 days of the challenge, stretch myself, learn a little bit about improvisation and see how that kind of sneaks through onto other things, if that makes sense. So I think what's been really interesting to me is that there have been a few times when I wondered what would happen next and where the channel's going and is there a plan for later in the year, September, October, or anything like that? It's like, oh, I'm doing the challenge right now. This is fun. This is fun. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. Subscribers will come, subscribers go. I don't know. I don't know. I was talking when I'm doing these improvisations as this character who's the professor. I honestly do not know what I'm going to say next. And then from somewhere, some inspiration comes and I start speaking. And so this really short-term kind of view of the world has been pushing back on my natural, I want to overthink this. I want to think about the future. I want to think at least medium term where this is heading to. But it's been like really close focus of today and I don't know what I'm saying in each little improvised segment. And I certainly don't know how other people are going to respond to it because it's so off the wall. It's so different. And as I say, it kept making me think about The Alchemist. And I thought, there's something else here. There's something. I love that book. I love that book. And I think if you love a book, there's part of you that wonders what is calling to me from that book that keeps making me want to think about it and think about the ideas from that and why is that relevant to my life. So that was what I was thinking about. So then move on to idea number 3, which is the Q&A. People like us do things like this. I just watched a video by Ren, Vincent's Tale, and one of the lines in that is about the person never being chosen. And it's like, I have to choose myself. I have to choose myself to do these challenges. I have to choose myself to do a YouTube channel. I have to choose myself to do all these things. And I was kind of hoping that somebody might show up and have questions and would want me to push them and say, come hang out. We're all choosing ourselves to experiment and to do all these different things. And how can I push you? How can I push you a little bit? Like people like us do things like this. People like us create stuff. Oh, Anya's just done a video and she was saying how we can either talk about the weather or create stuff. And I was like, oh, I love that line. It makes me feel like every time I play it safe and I have that conversation of the weather, that I'm copping out and that I really ought to be creating stuff and being braver about things. Anyway, I know there's a question, so I'm just gonna double check. Vividness 420 says hi. Sorry I'm late. What book were you talking about? I was talking about The Alchemist. And then they've said, sorry, not in a pushy mood. I won't push you too much. But if you had questions, if there was like a tiny inkling that said, oh, I wonder what I would create, or, well, I suppose it's more, is there an area of your life that you're thinking, I'm taking the energy of just talking about the weather, when really there's part of me that wants to do a little bit more than that. It doesn't have to be that you want to do a video or do anything else. But there you go. So anyway, yes, I was talking about The Alchemist because if you know The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, it is about the journey that matters and the projects that I'm doing at the moment. I've been enjoying each day and it's something that I have in the past struggled with. I do like to think about things, have been accused of being an overthinker. I do think about, well, what are my future goals for this and for my life and for the channel and for writing and stuff like that. And I know when I was younger, I always wanted to live in Spain, and I had lots of different jobs before that. But I would say, oh, kind of life begins when I get to Spain, and when I move to Spain, and like I'll start being more serious about finding a relationship when I'm in Spain, or I'll start thinking about my career and stuff when I'm in Spain. And I feel like I lost a lot of connections, and I kind of wasted quite a bit of time not really enjoying, and it ended up being years of being in the UK just talking about when I was going to be in Spain. So that's why I was talking about The Alchemist. Anyway, let's just say Vivianez was saying, gotcha. Been years and years since I read The Alchemist. Yeah, I saw something recently about a script and being made into a film. I have a feeling it was Will Smith. So you may have your own opinions about him right now, but I don't think it's happening this second. I have a feeling it was 2022 and there was progress being made, but for some reason I haven't heard any more since then. So, but I say it's just one of those things, sometimes when you have a favorite book and you think, it's nice, it's a story, that's nice, but I think there's more to it. I think there's something that's resonating with me, and for some reason I keep thinking about it, and it's almost like there's another message there that's going to be relevant to my life. Yeah. Do you have any questions for me? I haven't done a live for a long time, have I? And I really needed to push myself and hit record. Do you have any questions for me? Or just conversation, things that are happening in your life? I hope things are going well for you. There's a chance to catch up with people. Trying to think what else I've been doing. I made some notes earlier, but I don't think. Oh yeah, I wrote down about taking too long. There's been a few times with the whole YouTube experience and about writing books and different things, and about particular goals that I've had of work that I wanted to do. And there's sometimes when I say to myself, oh, it's taking too long, like it's not going to work. And I think that comes back to, that depends if I'm waiting to live and to enjoy things to actually achieve that, then you live and enjoy things. Or it's like, I know it's taking a long time, but this is the fun time. Everybody says that when they're creators and when they're super rich, they say, oh, I wished I'd enjoyed those early days where I was broke and struggling and, nobody was paying attention. So I've been trying to enjoy some of the things that I feel I can do quite freely. And there isn't really a big price to pay, certainly doing the experiments on YouTube and stuff like that. I thought it's, I could say in my head, oh, it's taking too long, I want to reach this point in the future, or I could say, what's the hurry, and just enjoy what's going on. Next question or comment. I used to be controlled by fear and anxiety. My head was always either in the past or the future. Been working very hard to get where I am today, and staying in the present isn't easy with ADHD. Yeah. One of the things, I don't know, I'm guessing you know quite a bit about me. The way you're speaking, I'm guessing you know. So I've been diagnosed with chronic fatigue, and I have been seeing different people who talk about regulating the nervous system. And one of the things they were saying is about being in the body and being in the present moment. And it made me realize how bad I was at that. So when the challenge came along and Annie was talking about being a character and improvising, I thought, well, that's exciting. That sounds interesting from an intellectual point of view, as in, oh, I wonder what would happen, just being curious about stuff. And then when she gave the tip and she was like, you need to be in the body and out of your head. And I thought, okay, busted, really. So I was having these two people from two different sides saying, you need to be in the body, you need to be in the present moment, you need to do this. And I thought, okay, I know I need to do this. And I think what was really useful is the challenge, and the way we did it was a more of a fun way to do it, because in terms of the therapy, being in your body and calming the nervous system, I found that I was finding that hard, and in a way it was starting to make me feel worse, because I don't know whether you know much about the chronic fatigue stuff, but there's a lot of talk about kind of being in your head, and that if you could just calm yourself down or regulate yourself, then you wouldn't be ill. So there is a sense sometimes that if I haven't managed to do this, if I haven't managed to stay in the present moment, then I am making myself more ill than I need to be. And as I say, I was already beating myself up for things that I was not being able to do in my life. Does that make sense to you? Anyway, they say, I admire you for challenging yourself and committing to YouTubing every day. Thank you. I was drawing cartoons, I was writing books, and I was scared of the camera. And then, not feeling so well, I thought I'm really going to struggle to leave the house and to do work, and I needed to do something with the camera. But I also felt that I felt like I'd been trying for a long time to make other things work, like my books or different things. I thought I've been trying for a really long time. And there was a point where, as I say, I drew this cartoon, and it was my character, this little stick person as me, knocking a table over and just everything flying in the air. And that was kind of how I felt. But I think I'd spent about 18 months, almost 2 years, focusing on the try every possible thing you can to get well. And then it was like, this isn't working. Like the whole thing wasn't working. And I needed to try something new. And I couldn't plan on when I'm well again in the future and I can go out to work, and when I'm well, I can do that. And I thought, no, you really have to consider that this may be it. This may be the way life is, and that if you are going to be sharing ideas or connecting with people, then it may be online. It may be on the camera. And I thought I'd give it a year and see what happened. I expected to be in a very different place after a year. And that's one of those things of, it's taken too long. But there's other times when I think, oh my goodness, so many fun things have happened over the year and a half or so. So, but you say you're doing better staying in the present moment. I found one hobby, which was I started getting a little bit into minimalism. Not that I'm a minimalist around the home, but I did start. It's kind of that intentional living. It's like, what do I want around me? And I think that's kind of in the present moment stuff, isn't it? It's like, I want my environment to feel supportive and relaxing to me, rather than, I've got this to do and that to do and that to do, and that's all that chatter, isn't it? And being off in the future. And then they say, I recognize the beating yourself up for shit. I used to have a whole choir of unkind voices in my head. Yeah. Have you ever heard of, what's it called? Family systems? Something, internal family systems. And he was saying there's no bad parts. So there's a part of me that's saying this to me, and there's a part of me that says this kind of thing. And it's something that I kept noticing kept coming up in the cartoons. There was a lot of, I would call it internal conflict, because there was a voice saying, I want to do this. And then there was a voice saying, no way, I don't want to do that, and like you say, there was other things, there was other conversations going on at the same time. So yeah, I used to have a whole choir of unkind voices. I hear you with that. I've watched a few things lately to do with other people's creativity, where they've kind of highlighted those different voices. And it's quite strange to have it externalized and see somebody else do that. And you think, well, I never speak to anybody like that, but I do know that that's how I speak to myself sometimes. So, as I say, at the moment, it's trying to be in the present moment. As I say, this challenge is really making me smile, as you can tell. And then also, I haven't done a live for a long time, so clearly something is happening where I'm like, oh no, I'm ready to be here in the moment and show up and do that. So there you go. But anyway, it sounds like you're doing better, because it's got to be better just to recognize that they're shitty little voices. But yeah, I noticed with the cartoons, as I say, there was a lot of doors that I was drawing, but there was a lot which was clearly two different parts of me saying I want to do this and then I don't want to do this. And I know when I wrote one of the books that I was writing, and it was about speaking more and doing stuff like that, and I thought, well, the problem isn't that you're bad at speaking. This is what I was talking to people who wanted help with speaking. I'm pointing to the book behind me, can you tell? The problem isn't that you're bad at speaking. The problem is that you want to do it. You want to do more. If you weren't particularly confident in speaking and were completely happy about that, if there was no other internal voices, then there is no problem with, you don't have to, nobody has to turn a camera on, or nobody has to write a book. The problem is when part of you wants to and part of you is scared. That's the problem, isn't it? Anyway, that's read department. Yes, that's what I'm working on at the moment. Unclustering my home and life. I have a difficult time letting go of stuff because of, according to my therapist, the neglect I endured as an infant. Yeah, you have to be super. I was going to use the word cautious, but I don't mean cautious. I mean being gentle, I think. I am able to let go of stuff, but it does raise questions. I've got rid of easily 1,000 books, and the books were a big part of my identity, that I've always loved books, and I didn't have the space for them, and I had to recognize that in this phase of my life I needed to have, for example, I've set up a bed downstairs, and we've had to convert the downstairs so that there can be a bathroom downstairs, because I was having trouble going up the stairs. And say, well, this is more important, and this may be more than just a weekend or a week somewhere. This may be the future, so I need to have that flexibility. And as I say, in the room that I'm sitting right now, I used to have bookcases all around me, and then I cut down on them. I probably did about the 500 or so, and I thought, well, just my favorites are left. And then a few months later, I cut down on them again, and a few months, So it's been layers. And I know with the videos that I was watching about minimalism, they were saying about fantasy you, and that fantasy me will be looking at all those books again. Fantasy me will be reading all of those books. And it's like, it took me a while to acknowledge that that was a fantasy me, and that may not be me in the future. And I've still got a ton of books, which sort of electronic books, that if I suddenly start feeling better and I'm able to read for large chunks of time, then I have plenty to read. But I still have kept favorite books and things that I feel are really important that I want to learn, but I'm not reading at the moment. So these are the last few things that I've been finding it hard, and it's definitely related to identity and different things like that. It's just been a godsend. It's just been so valuable to make everything in the home easier to manage. Just unbelievable. So I encourage you, but also to be gentle to yourself, but maybe a layer at a time. And then they say, how I learned to deal with my voices was to make a daily meeting appointment with them. I've heard about this, with them. So they would have their time and leave me alone for the rest of the day. So for years, I had internal meetings at 5 p.m. Good for you. I've never done that. I have heard that idea. I've heard the idea about doing that with worry, that if there's a part of you that wants to worry and you say, okay, at this time, you're going to worry for 10 minutes and just go worry, 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 and all the things that you're worried about. And then afterwards, it's like, okay, move on and do different things. I'm not sure I've had the discipline to do that. Did you find it easy to do that? I'm curious whether you found it easy to do that. One of the things that I have noticed is, I think what they call is like a spiral, don't they? That and there's a particular word for it. Catastrophizing, is that right? Catastrophizing, where they spiral. There's sometimes when I have a negative thought about something, and I can feel it going round and round, and I can feel me getting deeper, and none of the things have happened in that particular situation. It's all just completely me imagining, oh, they may say this, or this may happen, or something like that. And then what I've noticed is the best thing for me to do is just say, stop. And I can't remember, I heard this from somebody, and they were saying, you just need to realize that it's a thought. It's not related to reality. It's like a little floaty thing that passes by, and it happened to get stuck a little bit, and but it doesn't mean that thing is definitely going to happen, or that it's a sign from the universe that you need to pay attention to, or anything sort of important. It's just like a floaty thing. And so I think for me that the thing that's been the most helpful is to say, stop. As soon as I notice that I'm doing it, and that it's not related to anything that's real in my life. Sometimes I have these obscure, my daughter's 11, and sometimes I have these weird, random, horrific thoughts come into my head about her being hurt or something like that. And then I find myself thinking about it for a while. But as soon as I'm conscious enough to realize that I'm doing it, I go, stop. It's like, that was just a bizarre thought, like a nasty thought. I'm not even watching horror films, so I don't know why some of this nastiness comes in. I'm guessing just because it's like the deepest fear that I've got. But yeah, so this one person was saying, just you say stop, you bring it to conscious, and if you start again with your rattling, you go stop. But I found it useful to sort of view it as just a little light, airy, fairy thought, rather than it being a purposeful meaning. You've had this thought, so it must mean something. I found it useful to do that. Anyway, I'm dying to read what you said next. Okay, so you were talking about these meetings at 5 p.m. And you say, and the voices were allowed to say whatever they felt that they needed to say, and I would refute them with logic and facts. After a while, I got some positive voices in my corner, and the negative. If I'm missing anything, and the negative. Okay, in my corner, and the negative. Okay. Yeah, I think I've done a couple of experiments with writing with this kind of thing. In the internal family systems, one of the things they say, well, they don't really talk about it being positive and negative. They talk about no bad parts, but very often there's a part of you that's trying to protect you. And it may end up being quite nasty sounding to you, but it's trying to protect you. One of the things I thought was really interesting was to ask that part how old it thinks you are. And I was quite shocked that there's parts of me. It's quite interesting when you play these games that it's like these parts do have a definite idea of how old they think you are. It's like, oh no, I think you're 17 still. And it's like, well, would it surprise you, to know that I'm now in my 50s and I'm capable of thinking this through and working it through? And that seemed to calm and settle down some of those voices. I'm going to say, okay, the second part of this message, and the negative voices began to not show up, honor our agreement. And so with time, my daily meetings became more neutral, even cheerleading and advisory in nature. Well, that's good. Oh, I'm bad at cheerleading. One of the things I've noticed in the challenge that I'm doing as this professor, it's just a couple of minutes a day. When I'm doing the description underneath, and I normally write something about there's links to my books here or links to my cartoons, I've noticed that that has changed. And again, it wasn't a conscious decision, but it was like, click on this to go see my amazing cartoons. And although it sounds like I'm making fun of myself, it was more making it fun to write that description. It's like, yeah, my cartoons are great. They're not for everyone, but they are I like them. They tickle me. Some of them are funny. Some of them are kind of serious. I'm proud of that work. And it felt more easy to say that. So it's a small way that snuck in. It's not me. I don't feel like I'm cheerleading myself particularly well. I could do with some help about doing that. Maybe I should be having a 5 p.m. meeting and cheerleading. But I have as I say, it was definitely noticeable. Previously, I would just say, if you want to see more about my work, here's the link. But now it's become this more playful, here's my amazing books. And if you've got this, or if you've ever worried about this, or my best-selling book, or, and I've it was almost like I was giving myself permission to be a bit more playful, which was also positive and cheerleading-y type of thing. It's funny how it sneaks out though, isn't it? Have you found that, well, I'm guessing it must impact other things that you're doing in the world. Must impact things. I wonder whether you're able to think of something or share it. It's like, oh yeah, I found that I said no to somebody, or just stood up for yourself a little bit more without being upset about it, and things like that. Oh, there you go. I'm curious if it seeps into other areas. But it's interesting that you also say about simplifying and sort of the minimalism stuff. I had this idea about what minimalism was, and it was completely incorrect. I thought it was more the aesthetic of everything being white and, like there be no stuff anywhere. And it's not, as I say, it's about this intentional living of, I'm going to make the space really easy for me to manage. Although if you could see my desk right now, you'd be like, she's not interested in minimalism, because it's like piles of papers and stuff like that. But the rest of the home is much easier to manage, which in turn has meant that I'm able to get in this room and to create and to do different things. So there you go. Anyway, I like your idea of a 5 p.m. meeting. That sounds good. Do you have any questions or anything else? How have I done? 8:38. Just waffling on. Oh, dear me. Any questions that you have or things that you want to share? I think it's really good that you're focusing on being in the present moment. I don't think it's good to be in the present moment all the time. I do think sometimes it's useful to let yourself daydream and have a goal and an aim and head towards it. But yeah, but not if it's causing all the stress and the worry and different things like that. Anything else? And they're saying, I didn't fully find my inner strength until the fall of 2019, when I realized that the fall of 2019, when I realized that the pandemic that I read about in the Rockefeller white papers was coming soon. I left my 13-year relationship. Wow, you saw things coming, did you? I did not see things coming. I ended up, it was December, I think it was December 2019. I used to live in Madrid. That was where I met and married my husband. And we did a quick weekend holiday back to Madrid and went with our daughter. And I remember being there, really enjoying the trip, but having this sense of that's that time period coming to a close. it was a really strange, yeah, it was fun, but it was kind of like you commemorate something, and we hadn't intended that. We'd gone out to see friends, we had a great time in Madrid, but it had that feeling of that was that 10-year block of time, and it was just wrapped up nice and neat. And obviously I didn't know what was gonna, well, I say obviously, there is no obvious because you saw things coming. I didn't see what was coming, but it is weird in hindsight to look back and say, oh, I had that feeling of things were wrapping up and then something new was coming up forward. Okay. So I was just about to ask you about the relationship, because you said I left my 13-year relationship, but then you say with a covert malignant narcissist. So yes, okay, so you're happy about leaving the relationship. That's what I was gonna ask next. It's weird though how some of these things bring to the surface kind of what's important, though, isn't it? I think I've never had that kind of relationship. I've never had a relationship that had any real issues like that, where I would have to, say, but I'd have to even consider that. So I don't have any experience about that. But I do think it's weird when there's challenging times, how it focuses your mind about what's important and what you need to do. But a relationship is super tough, because I do think your self-confidence is impacted a lot. So it must be very hard to be able to view the situation. That's what I imagine. That sense of, can I have some perspective on this and see what's actually happening here, and that you needed to remove yourself from the situation. Yeah. So although that was 2019 and we're just 2025 now, I don't know, does that feel like a long time or a short time? For me, after a long relationship, that seems like quite a short time. Okay. Let's say, well, yeah, I'm a crazy tinfoil hatter. I knew when I saw Bill Gates and his cohorts having their rehearsal called Event 201, I knew I had to get out of the grip of him with a mortgage and shit. Okay, what does that mean? Does that mean that you went to a rental, or you were paying off the mortgage, or you were just trying to go to something completely new? Yeah. We were talking earlier today about people who talk about conspiracy theories, and it was a little bit hard for me to listen to the conversation, because I think once you realize you've been lied to once, it's once you realize that authority have been deceiving you about one thing, it can be quite a small thing, it really knocks your belief in the whole system. So yeah. There you go. And I'm still working that one out. I'm still feeling sometimes that I was talking to my mom. She was visiting this week, and part of me was feeling like I wished I didn't know some of the things that I know. So, in particular about the media and how things are reported or not reported, as the case may be. But I'm not sure how much I want to be public about those kind of things. At the moment, I'm quite happy focusing on building my skills, getting more confident, playing a little bit, learning these things about being in the body and being in the present moment. But I do wonder sometimes whether in the future I will feel braver and want to talk about other things. But for right now, I really want to talk about this idea of choosing yourself to do the things that you want to do, rather than waiting for permission. So yeah. Okay, they said we put the house up for sale and I moved to a different town where I didn't know anyone. Wow. Good for you. Good for you. So was this part of a reinvent yourself thing? Because there's something about moving to a different town, and I've moved to different towns and I've moved to different countries, and it's almost felt like an easier way to reinvent myself. And that with new people, I can just be a newer version of me. No. It can be lonely, but it's I think it was also quite freeing to be doing that as well. I'm guessing you're happy that you've made all these changes. Does that make sense? I know that you're taking time to type. I'm guessing because you're sharing it that you're happy about those things. Can't believe it's 2025. There's something happened about the whole 2020 is that I seem to, because that couple of years being locked down and different things like that, it's almost like there's 2 years that I've just been wiped out. So in my mind, we're still about 2023 and, you know, very late is 24. So, yeah. My daughter missed a couple of years of school. Well, she was backwards and forwards to school because I don't know whether you're in the UK, but then they would close it and then they would open it again and different things like that. So we're yet to discover what kind of impact that has. But yeah. But for me, it's more, I find because I've been ill that sometimes talking about some of these things makes me feel worse. And so it's like, okay, no, I put that in a box for now, and I'll play and explore and do other things. Okay, next comment. I had about 2 years of dark night of the soul after I went down the dark rabbit holes of what really goes on in this realm. But now I'm glad I'm not living in the normie world. Yeah. I'm a bit wary of who do I mention in terms of different things that I've listened to, but there is somebody that talks about the movement from being naive to being cynical and then to wisdom. And I found that really interesting because I felt like I was in cynical mode, and I didn't like it. It felt dark and quite negative, and I was thinking, but I don't know where to go with this. I can't go back and pretend some of this stuff didn't happen. That kind of moving back to being more naive. And it's like, no, you need to know that some of this stuff happens and some people are motivated in these ways, and some people will stay quiet because it takes a lot of courage to speak up. Now you know that these things exist. How are you going to be wise and continue with your life and the things that you want to do afterwards? So getting all deep now, isn't it? I didn't think I'd be talking about this today. Linda saying, I swore a long time ago when I met my biological mother that I would never allow myself to become bitter and cynical. Okay. So it sounds, I just want to ask you loads of questions about you. I'm very nosy, aren't I? Yeah. And they're saying that they've kept that promise. Good for you. When I was ill and the way I was treated by the medical profession, I was becoming quite bitter and cynical. And as I say, it wasn't a good feeling. So I thought, I found myself, I joined some different groups to do with Facebook groups and stuff like that about health. And I thought, I can't be around this. I can't be talking about symptoms. I can't be talking about who's to blame, and how badly and treated and different things like that. It's like, okay, I have this information now. I have to go forward with that. Say I haven't figured it all out how it's going to come together. They do say that you can't connect the dots in advance, don't you? So these are the experiences that I've had, and in another 5 years, 10 years, I'm going to look back and say, oh, that was important that I learned that and that I was aware of that for those kind of things. Saying ask away. It was because you said about when you met your biological mother. So did you know? Did you know her or know of her? I mean, what did you know? Or was this I don't know. I'm just curious about that. My daughter is adopted. So that was what jumped out at me. Just being really nosy. Yeah. But that's a big deal. It's something that I've spoken to my daughter about, in that the story about adoption, that you find a biological parent or you don't find a biological parent, and both bring their stuff with it. I didn't want her to see it or only hear the kind of Disney conversation about adoption. And it's like there's a lot of feelings that could be going on. For everybody, really, isn't it? For everybody. Oh, dear me. Okay, they're saying, I went into foster care when I was 8 months old, and my foster parents adopted me when I was 4.5 years old. Okay. Wow. The reason I'm saying wow is that I don't hear many stories about foster and then adoption. I think that's why I was saying wow. I've heard more of the stories of multiple fosters. So, I mean, I'm hoping that these foster parents, you had a good childhood. Yeah, but I'm leaning towards that stability. I'm hoping that was good. As I say, I don't know anything about her life. Yeah. But I suppose even if I did know the details about your life, I still don't know how you feel. It's one of the things about adoption is I think there can be a sense of other adoptees. I've read different books and they say, I felt this or I did that, or, they're angry about certain things or happy about certain things. It's like, it's clearly a different experience for everyone. And I think what's really important is, the details matter and how they interpret the details matter. So at the moment, my daughter's young, and it's let's wait and see what happens. So, there you go. Do you have, I'm just looking down and being slower. I've always known that they were not my real parents, and when I was a child, I would often ask why my parents didn't want me or threaten to go find them when I wasn't allowed to get something. Yeah. I'm smiling because my daughter's done. She said some funny things when she was little. And we used to say, when she was very little, we used to refer to her biological mother as Tummy Mummy. And she's like, Tummy Mummy would let me do that, trying to get away with certain things. But, and it was funny, as her mom, I was thinking that would hurt or that would feel bad. And I was quite surprised at the time that it really didn't. And that it was kind of funny as a child to see this child be so smart and so quick to compare us. So my daughter's from Ethiopia, so she's black, and obviously there was no secrets or anything like that. But even if we'd adopted a white child, I think nowadays the conversation about adoption is you do tell them right from the start. We were told to say that you've been adopted even before they would understand what the words are. So you just keep using those words, you're adopted. So there's no surprise later. You're adopted, you're adopted, you're adopted. And then at one point it's like, well, what does adoption mean? And then you explain it and then, keep going on. Yeah. So yeah. Lots of things. I'm just wondering if you're typing something longer, so I'm pausing for a second. I'm probably going to wrap this up soon. It's been so nice talking to you, though. Thank you for showing up and sharing your time and writing comments. As I say, I went through a little spate of doing the live videos every Sunday, but then I struggled with some different feedback and comments, and I think I felt like I needed to go away and lick my wounds a little bit. So it's been really nice to show up and to have somebody engage and just be normal and curious and interesting to talk to. So thank you. I'm just going to hover for a second because I'm wondering if you're typing. Yes, you are typing. It says, I found my birth mother and grandmother just before my 30th birthday. I had contact with her for 7 years, and then I chose to ask them to not contact me anymore. She didn't want good things for me. Okay. Well, I'm sorry that it ended up being that, but I hope you feel that it was worthwhile for the 7 years. Whatever it is you learnt and discovered about them, and the answers that you had, I hope that that was helpful for you. It can be, as I say, when I was talking to my daughter, it's just a feeling of that this could be really, a lot of feelings could go on. What does it say? I didn't want her to have this Disney idea of people being really good and magical kind of thing, or being the villains. Like it's neither. It's well, from my point of view, communicated to her, it was like, no, it's probably quite messy, and there probably could be a lot of feelings going on, and deal with that when you're ready, if you're ready, something like that. So anyway, thank you for sharing your story. And I'm probably going to be cutting it short. I don't know whether you've got anything final to be sharing with me. I love hearing that you were doing some of the minimalism stuff and talking about being in the present moment too, and mainly and pushing back about the normies. Okay, so he said she was the most bitter, evil, and cynical person I had ever met. Yes, I realized that she saved my life by leaving me. It's not a popular thing to say, is it? And yeah, so I just watched a video today, and it was one of those police camera videos, and the woman was found with, this is probably a really gross conversation to be having just as I was going to sign off, but anyway, the woman had the bodies of 2 children in the car, and she said, and she was talking to the police, and she said, you know, the girl had been naughty, and she says, so I gave her a beating, you know. And it's like, okay. And the police were saying, well, what do you mean? She was like, yeah, I just gave her a beating. She got a fist. And I'm like, oh my God. Now, my suspicion is she was probably given a beating when she was a child, but you know, the stuff, we have no idea that there's some of these things exist. Yeah. I hope you, well, I hope you feel that these were all worthwhile and valuable. I can imagine that if you never met them, that it might be easier to put them on a pedestal and imagine things to be different than they are. And I could see that it would be really, really hard to realize the different qualities that they had. And you're saying, I couldn't have had better parents than the ones I was gifted. Still, the abandonment and neglect do leave scars and emotional trauma that has to be dealt with sometime. Yeah. Yes, I agree. I hope you're getting support and help. It sounds like you are talking to people, and I think it's a really positive sign that you said you recognized what was happening in the relationship and then you took yourself out of it. I feel like that could be really, really hard to spot because you can be so swamped by somebody else and not able to see your actions clearly. So I think that's really positive that you are able to move yourself out of that. But yeah, I agree that it's some of these things are hard and that may need help and some time to deal with things. So I don't want to leave you feeling, I hope you're feeling okay. I don't want to leave you feeling, I don't know, a focus on things that were hard. I hope you feel that you have moved into this wisdom part of things. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm not a fan of all the things that you've had to learn, but now this makes you a wiser person. And then what's next? I don't know. Well, I suppose be in the present moment, but whatever's next after that. But anyway, I was thinking of going, but I'm kind of hovering because I feel a little bit like I don't want you to be. I hope you feel like you can give yourself a pat on the back and say, yeah, I didn't get stuck in the cynical stuff. I recognized it for what it was, and I can move on. And I said, I've spent many years in cognitive therapy, and I must say that after she passed, my birth mother redeemed herself. She came to me in dreams and helped me heal the trauma she caused me as a child. Oh my goodness, now I could talk to you all about that, couldn't I? But another time. That's an interesting next chapter of the story, isn't it, really? Do you write? Anyway, I want to ask you other things, but I really need to do bedtime for my daughter. But I'm curious whether you write or do poetry or something like that. I feel like you could have a way with. Well, I don't know anything about you. I just feel like, oh, there's things that you're giving me a sense that you've got a way with words and want, and that there's something, a story. I don't know whether you write and different things. So there's a few people that have shown up in the comments, and sometimes I forget who I've spoken to. I tend to know them more by the story that they've told me. And I know there are a few that write and do poetry and do different things like that. So, but there you go. Anyway, I have to do nanite's time for my daughter. But thank you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Saying, and there's lots of emojis. No hovering needed, hon. Thanks for chatting with me. I will be back some other time. Go tuck in your precious little girl. Yeah, I'm sure she preferred just having the tablet and just having a bit more YouTube time. But yeah, she gets me. Okay, thanking you. Thank you for hanging out with me. Really enjoyed chatting. Bye.